We begin in India, where police have raided the homes of several journalists at more than 30 locations in and around New Delhi. The journalists are associated with the news website NewsClick. A case has been filed against the outlet under an anti-terror law. It comes after the New York Times alleged back in August that NewsClick received funding from a businessman linked to China and promoted pro-Beijing talking points. The journalists say police have confiscated their laptops and phones. Media watchdog Reporters Without Borders placed India at the 161st place in its latest press freedom rankings this year. Well, the association, the largest association of journalists in India, has reacted on the social media platform X. It said the Press Club of India is deeply concerned about the multiple raids conducted on the houses of journalists and writers associated with NewsClick. And they say they are monitoring developments and will be releasing a more detailed statement. Let's go to Shoaib Daniel. He joins us now from New Delhi. He's a political editor at Scroll News website. Thank you for joining the programme. Why do you think these journalists have been targeted?
So this is actually part of a pattern against civil liberties that the Modi government has run for the past decade or so. The case against NewsClick actually has been long running and earlier involved a case of foreign funds being transferred under draconian enforcement directorate laws. And now that's been widened to an anti-terror case after, as you pointed out, the New York Times published an article in August alleging that NewsClick had received Chinese funds. So this is part of the Modi government's politics around muscular nationalism, muscular national security. And as you can see, this is playing out hugely in India today across the news channels. Along these lines.
As you say, the authorities say they've used this anti-terror law to justify these raids. I mean, does that make sense to you that they've used anti-terrorism laws to target these journalists?
Well, yes and no. At any moral level, it does not. The journalists being raided are being raided. I mean, across the board. Even if we were to, for a minute, believe these allegations. At worst, you could have targeted the management of the website. But what we're seeing right now is even junior employees are getting raided, even contributors are getting raided, which is absolutely, frankly, ridiculous. The yes comes from the fact that India has an extremely draconian terror law regime where people can be arrested and locked away for years without trial. And we've been seeing that with civil rights activists, across India. There have been multiple cases where rather flimsy allegations have been made and people locked up under India's terror law, which is called the UAPA, which is what is being used here. So legally, unfortunately, there isn't a lot to push back against this sort of action, the way India's laws and courts have interpreted this.
And tell us a bit more what you think about these New York Times allegations about the funding of this website, that it comes from a US millionaire who is pushing some sort of Chinese propaganda. I mean, what is your understanding? Do you use this website? What more can you tell us about it? And is it illegal in any way for overseas funding for a news website in India?
So that's the defense that NewsClick has given, that even if these allegations that the New York Times has made are true, there is nothing illegal that it has done. And of course, we'll only find that out at the end of the trial. But the way India's legal system is sort of built, that final verdict might come after so many years, that in a way the process is the punishment. The fact that these cases have been launched, that these charges have been made against NewsClick and these raids have been made, and potential arrests could also be made. That itself would be so punitive. And remember, NewsClick is a very small news organization, an independent news organization. That itself would be extremely harmful, not only to NewsClick, but the idea of press freedom in India, because then you can, based on these sort of allegations, you could really go after any media house or journalist in India.
And as we were reporting earlier, this year, India slipped in the World Press Freedom Index. It's now 161 out of 180. What is your experience when it comes to press freedom?
Press freedom has indeed taken a huge hit over the last decade. India was always a functioning democracy, and we always had a push and pull when it came to press freedom. But over the last decade, what we're seeing is that even a sort of facade that the government used to put forward in helping protect journalists and helping protect journalism is gone. You can see that journalism itself nowadays is becoming increasingly a crime if you're on the wrong side of the divide. You could be raided, you could be arrested, you could be charged with a litany of offenses. And remember, it's a state on the other side, so they have an infinite amount of resources. And very often, the journalists who are independent and are reporting, against power, they don't have a lot of resources. So it's a really chilling. It has a chilling effect, honestly, on journalism in India. You could arrest one person, but using that, you could actually silence hundreds of journalists who would genuinely and understandably be scared about the safety of themselves and their families.
I appreciate your time and speaking to us here on Al Jazeera. Shoaib Daniel, a political editor at the Scroll News website, speaking to us there from New Delhi.